Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and I know you see all of this drama going on around Brandon Aiyuk. It seems like we do this about every month. We don't go 2 months without talking about Brandon Aiyuk to the Commanders. I'm going to give y'all a full breakdown as to why it does not make sense, but why it could also make sense at the same time. We're going to talk about the fact that Brandon Aiyuk apparently wants to get traded to the Washington Commanders in the video and the FaceTime that he had with Jaden Daniels earlier today. And then also, we're going to talk about this first. The Washington Commanders stole an elite team developer from the Houston Texans a week ago. I'm gonna give y'all the update on that, who he is, the rave reviews, who's giving these rave reviews, and what they're saying about him and how he could potentially help us, especially with some of the situations we've had the past couple of years. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Again, I'm keeping y'all updated on everything going on with the Washington Commanders. Just a heads up again for any of y'all that may not have seen the past few videos that I've said it. We do not have a single Commanders practice again until July 29th when training camp starts. So there will be a dead period for the Washington Commanders. But again, RicoScores will keep you entertained and up to date on everything going on with the Commanders up until then. We'll have rumors like today or reports. We'll have, if we sign a player, if we release a player, whatever, I'll keep y'all updated on everything. I'm working on rookie film sessions. I want to get all of those done before training camp starts. So make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. I have so many video ideas, so just stay tuned. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this video. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so let's start with the elite player developer that we took from the Texans. I would argue stole, because a lot of the Texans players have already said that they will miss him and owe a lot of where they are so far in their careers to this guy. I saw John Com tweet, as Aaron Wilson _NFL reported earlier today, and this was a week ago, back on June 10th. The Commanders are hiring Dylan Thompson for a player development role. One guy who raved about him in Houston, quarterback CJ Stroud. Washington parted ways last month with Malcolm Blacken, who was their previous director of player development as well. So that's the guy that left. We're bringing in Dylan Thompson, who's coming in, and the players love him, most notably CJ Stroud. We're really going to dive into some of the praise that he has for him. Just off rip, he said, quote, "I think I grew tremendously as a man. Dylan is one of the best human beings that I've ever met in my life," unquote. That is high praise from CJ Stroud. We're going to truly dive into his quotes about Dylan Thompson a little later. But just other notable praises come from Ogbo Okoronkwo. He's literally tweeted, he quote tweeted the Aaron Wilson tweet about the Commanders hiring Dylan Thompson and taking away from the Texans. He said, "Good hire, great person," but he wasn't the only one. You also have Will Anderson in a video talking about him. He said, quote, "There is no Will Anderson without Dylan Thompson," unquote. There's literally a video of Will Anderson discussing how director of team development Dylan Thompson, who is now leaving for the Washington Commanders, elevated CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, and the entire 2023 rookie class off the field. High praise from him, from all of the top players on the Texans. Again, Will Anderson, Tank Dell, CJ Stroud. And this is not just a one-year thing. It's not like just the 2023 rookie class is very appreciative of him. You also go all the way back to 2021 when then rookie tight end Brevin Jordan said he's like the overseer of our rookie class. Even aside Dylan just doing his job, he's more so like a figure for us. We really look up to Dylan. His job is huge, and it's definitely helped me keep a positive mindset, unquote. So when you're talking about building this culture for the Texans from the inside out and making sure these players are in line and doing all of the right things off the field as well, Dylan Thompson gets a lot of the credit for that. He began his NFL career as an undrafted quarterback for the 49ers in 2015, spending time briefly with the Rams in 2016 and 2017. He spent 2018 through 2020 with the Lions as their character coach before being hired by the Texans in 2021 2021. His first year being their player development guy was the 2021 season when Brevin Jordan was a rookie, and he worked closely with the players in mentoring and development, all of that type of stuff for them. And again, they really appreciate him and they really miss him. CJ Stroud and Will Anderson both spoke highly of him. Like, there's not even necessarily a big need to go down his entire resume and what he did for all of the other teams, because just the Texans itself speaks for themselves. I mean, CJ Stroud and Will Anderson said that they both feel like he played a huge role in their growth off the field, in particular their faith and growing as men. They say he's always down for any deep conversation. That's coming directly from them. And the exact quote from CJ Stroud, the longer quote, he said, quote, "I think I grew tremendously, man. I know he's going to be mad at me for this, Dylan Thompson. Oh my gosh, Dylan is one of the best human beings that I've ever met in my life. There's a ton of people, great people in this organization, but DT has been the main person. You talk about a brother, like to somebody who loves you no matter what happens on the field. You can feel that. I just appreciate that. And now he's going to be mad at me, but man, he's a great person. And he's really one of the reasons why I feel like we were very successful this year," unquote. That's coming from CJ Stroud directly. And with several high-profile legal run-ins among the players in recent years, most notably Jamin Davis, Deshazor Everett, you could throw Benjamin St-Juste in there as well, the Washington Commanders could definitely use somebody like this to improve in that area. And it's expected that Thompson will be heavily involved in keeping players out of the public eye, off the field, and doing anything nonsensical, anything drama-related, bringing any unnecessary attention to the Commanders in the wrong light. This guy is the guy that's going to handle all of that. I mean, honestly, if he was just like Jeffrey from the new Fresh Prince series, I feel like that would be perfect, because it sounds like he's kind of somewhat like that, but of course not that far. But that would be like the ideal candidate for this job. But it sounds like Dylan Thompson is probably the next best thing. Also, before we move on to the Brandon Aiyuk discussion and all of that drama and chaos going on around that, seems like, again, we cycle this like every couple of months, every month, even as soon as that. Also, before we move on, as you can see on the screen, the Washington Commanders have posted a few data and analytics team opportunities for those of y'all that may want that. So I'm just giving y'all what I saw on Twitter. Just wanted to go ahead and relay that message for any of y'all that may be interested. Now let's move on to the Brandon Aiyuk talks, because golly, man, we're in this drama again. We just talked about him like literally last month, and I did a full breakdown as to why we should get him and why we should not get him. I gave you both sides, but just to catch everybody up from the last time that we talked about him, because we're not going to go and just do a whole breakdown of everything from the beginning of this chaos all the way to now. We're basically just going to continue off from where we left off last time. So continuing from there, just to catch you up, Brandon Aiyuk was not at the mandatory minicamp for the 49ers recently. He wants to get paid. Jeff Darlington said that the 49ers are facing a wildly interesting situation when it comes to the Brandon Aiyuk contract situation. And then there was also a report from Sterling Bennett at 49ers Access when he tweeted back on June 16th, negotiations between the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk have stalled a bit. Fowler added to the things do not have a lot of momentum and optimism, despite both sides wanting to get a deal done, but right now it's not looking very good at all. I'm assuming it's a money situation. Apparently, I'm just going to assume, I haven't heard this myself, but Brandon Aiyuk probably sees himself as worthy of like top wide receiver money, market setting wide receiver money. We'll talk about what that number could potentially be very soon in this video, like a little later in this video, so stay tuned for that. But maybe he's somewhere and the 49ers are somewhere else, and there's just like this gap in what Brandon Aiyuk wants to get paid and what the 49ers are willing to give him, and neither side is willing to budge right now. If he's willing to miss mandatory mini camps for it, we'll see if he's willing to miss training camp for it, maybe even preseason, maybe even regular season. How serious is he about this holdout right now? And so then, which leads us today, via Brandon Aiyuk's TikTok. Here's the clip right here that got everybody talking. Again, this was released earlier today.
What's good? He got me vlogging this shit.
Bro, what?
What happened, bro?
They said they don't want me back. I swear.
And so apparently Brandon Aiyuk wants to go to the Washington Commanders to play with his best friend Jaden Daniels, and that would be an insane situation. I mean, again, we're going to talk about the money side of things, the logistics behind it, and why that doesn't make any sense. But if we're just talking about if money doesn't exist, if cap space doesn't exist, why that would be such an insane addition right there. That combo would be crazy. But the fact that he said in that video, they say they don't want me back. That's the exact quote from Brandon Aiyuk, which is crazy. Sounds like they're even further apart than what is being reported by a lot of the national media and things like that. From Brandon Aiyuk himself, it sounds like he's making it sound like the 49ers just straight up don't even want him, that they don't value him to the level that he values himself right now. So, of course, Jaden Daniels would love to play with Brandon Aiyuk. I mean, they are literally best friends. Like, Jaden Daniels is, of course, close friends with guys like Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, who they just played together at LSU for the past couple of years, just came out of the draft at the same time and everything. But Jaden is obviously closer to Brandon Aiyuk. I mean, they go all the way back to the Arizona State days together. And even beyond that, even after Jaden Daniels got drafted, the first non-family member that you could even see him hanging with was Brandon Aiyuk. All the way back in Cali, he went all the way back home to hang out with him in person and things like that. And even the night of the first round after Jaden Daniels got drafted by us, Brandon Aiyuk was one of the people that pulled up to his live and was congratulating him and extra happy for him and things like that. And even before the draft, before we even took Jaden Daniels was asked who his dream teammate would be, and he replied, Brandon Aiyuk, right here in this clip.
Who's your dream teammate?
Brandon Aiyuk.
Brandon Aiyuk?
Brandon Aiyuk.
Brandon Aiyuk. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought you said Brandon Knight. I was like, NBA player.
Nah.
Okay, Brandon Aiyuk. That'd be tough.
And so, of course, this is very interesting because they are best friends. He said that that's the teammate he would want to play with the most when he gets to the NFL. And then now you have Brandon Aiyuk saying that the 49ers don't even want him back. So, of course, this has everybody questioning, is this a real thing? But I do need to point out the fact that, of course, this is a business. And the NFL does not care who are best friends or not at all. So that is not enough. Do the Commanders actually have a need for Brandon Aiyuk? Now that's a different situation. Now Brandon Aiyuk, just to keep you up to date, the 49ers selected him with the 25th pick in the draft a couple of years ago, and over the past 4 seasons, he's emerged as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Of course, that's why we're talking about him. And as of April 2023, the 49ers picked up Brandon Aiyuk's 5th-year option, which is what he's playing on right now. Well, right now he's holding out, but that's what he will play on when he eventually returns to the team, which I'm expecting him to do. I don't think he's going to hold out severely, like to the point that he's missing games and things like that, but you never know. But this keeps him on contract at least through the 2024 season for the San Francisco 49ers. But this offseason, there's been a tremendous amount of speculation about whether the 49ers will extend him or not, and whether they may trade him before losing control of him, because once you don't have him on contract, you're not going to get anything back for him except for maybe a compensatory pick. But if he walks in free agency, you can't trade him. So if they're going to trade him away, it would have to be this season before the season ends. And now, of course, Brandon Aiyuk is also a great receiver. I mean, according to Pro Football Focus, he was the second best receiver out of the entire NFL last year with the second highest grade that they gave out. Only behind Tyreek Hill, who had a 93.4 overall grade. They had Brandon Aiyuk with a 91.5. Again, second amongst all NFL wide receivers. And even in their breakdown of their wide receiver rankings, they said the 49ers top receiver in 2023, Aiyuk was one of the only 3 wideouts to average more than 3 yards per route run in the regular season. With his 3.01 mark ranking 3rd at the position, he finished the year with just 2 drops from 86 catchable targets. I mean, this is an elite receiver, no doubt about it. There's no debate about that. But it's not just about the talent. Do the Commanders have a need? Well, when you're looking at our wide receiver depth right now, I love Terry McLaurin. I'm very excited about Jahan Dotson having a bounce back year. You've already seen his connection growing with Jaden Daniels in practice. We're seeing all kinds of highlights of them pretty much looking like an unguardable duo, Jaden Daniels to Jahan Dotson. And then, of course, again, Terry McLaurin is going to Terry McLaurin. He's going for 1,000 yards as long as Jaden Daniels is even half as good as I think he'll be. And then I'm also very excited about 3rd-round rookie Luke McCaffrey, who seems to be molding himself into like a Curtis Samuel role compared to what the 2023 Commanders were trying to do, or even to compare him to what Brandon Aiyuk has played next to Deebo Samuel, a Deebo Samuel-like role with what he had with the 49ers last year, or even our general manager, Adam Peters, when he was with the 49ers last year as well. There goes that connection between Brandon Aiyuk, Adam Peters coming to the Commanders from the 49ers. You know, there's that strong connection, that bond. But again, Luke McCaffrey himself is playing in a role similar to what Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson had next to them last year, and Curtis Samuel, with Brandon Aiyuk had next to him last year and potentially going into this year in Deebo Samuel. So he has a nice role. Basically, my main point is Luke McCaffrey doesn't get in the way of a Brandon Aiyuk because him and Deebo Samuel, they had no problems of being productive around each other. But then you look at the rest of the wide receiver depth. I mean, De'Ami Brown's a good blocker, arguably our best blocking wide receiver on the roster, and he also shows some deep ball potential, and he's shown some great hands this offseason. I got to see it in games, though. I mean, it seems like every offseason he's making 100 catches. I got to see it in game to be more dependable, to actually depend on him to make those types of catches. And then you have Olamide Zaccheaus, who's been showing great promise as far as like being a returner so far in mandatory mini camps, early offseason practices, and he's coming as like a veteran slot receiver. Then of course you have Jamison Crowder, another veteran slot receiver. He was your starting punter last year. We have some pretty decent wide receiver depth. Davion Davis has been making play after play. He's been far more noticeable than I expected. You brought in Damiere Byrd in the offseason. Mitchell Tinsley and Casimir Allen are undrafted free agent from 2023. Then you have Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint that, of course, I'm rooting for because he's a Georgia Bulldog. You have Bryson Tremaine, who's the tallest receiver on roster by far. Luke McCaffrey is our tallest receiver at 6'2", other than Bryson Tremaine, who's 6'5". So you have some interesting pieces in here involved in the wide receiver depth. And so far, early on in this offseason, we haven't hit training camp yet, but the wide receiver depth looks better than I expected. But none of those guys I just listed are Brandon Aiyuk. I mean, a lot of people, most people in the NFL would argue that Brandon Aiyuk, if we were to trade for him, would immediately be our best wide receiver, even better than Terry McLaurin, let alone all of the rest of the wide receiver depth that we have right now. So you could argue that we do have technically a need for Brandon Aiyuk. But remember, like I pointed out before, if you trade for Brandon Aiyuk and give him big time money, then you would be giving out big receiver contracts 3 years in a row consecutively. Like, that's 3 consecutive seasons of paying market-setting money for wide receivers, and that sounds crazy, I'm not gonna lie. The very only reason that you may be able to get away with it and still be competitive is because your starting quarterback is playing at an elite level. Like, Jaden Daniels will have to be like a top 5, top 8 quarterback while he's still on this current rookie deal that he just signed a few days ago. But even then, it doesn't make much sense because the wide receiver market is crazy right now, and it's only getting worse. The later you pay, the more you pay right now. If you're looking at the wide receiver market, first of all, Brandon Aiyuk himself, great player, but you would only be getting him on a 1-year rental. You would have to pay him immediately. And I feel like the very base of that would have to be $30 million a year right now, because Lions wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who you could argue occupies the same stratosphere as Hogs Haven worded it on their website as Brandon Aiyuk. And just to go back to the Pro Football Focus grades to back up that point, Brandon Aiyuk was ranked the 2nd best receiver in the NFL by Pro Football Focus. Amon-Ra St. Brown was right behind him, 4th. And the only difference was a 0.3, 91.5 to 91.2. I mean, right there. So you could argue that, yeah, they are similar in talent and production if you want to make that argument. And Amon-Ra St. Brown just signed a $30 million per year deal back in April. Then literally the day after that, A.J. Brown for the Eagles signed a $32 million per year deal with the Eagles. And then earlier this month, Justin Jefferson, who you would argue is the best wide receiver in the entire NFL, signed a $35 million a year deal just like a couple of weeks ago. And so you would assume that after all of these deals that have gone down in the wide receiver group around the NFL, the market, with how that's set up, that at the very least, you're starting at $30 million a year. At the very, very least. He's making $14 million this year on his 5th-year option, so maybe you could convince him to take a little less than that, maybe just because, hey man, you can get money sooner. You'll make way less money down the line long term, but if you want to make more money right now in 2024, we can go ahead and change that $14 million deal to like a $30 million deal. But I'm assuming that based on what everybody else has gotten paid, and just assuming that every receiver wants to be the next highest paid receiver, and they're always going to outdo the receiver before them, even if they're not even necessarily better than that guy, you're probably going to have to start at $36 million a year, because again, Justin Jefferson just got 35, and Brandon Aiyuk isn't necessarily Justin Jefferson level, but that's not how the market is set up. That's not how the NFL works. That's not how these contracts work. And so assuming that he's going to probably get somewhere at least $36 million per year, we don't even have that cap space right now to give him that annually a year. I just did a breakdown, was it yesterday or a couple of days ago, about how much cap space we have after the rookie class was signed, and we're down to like 20 something million, like 26, 27 million, something like that. And to pay him $36 million a year is just absolutely insane. We literally can't even afford to do that right now. But even if we did find a way to do that, even just somehow we cleared cap space, at Commanders_365 on Twitter brings up a great point, and I completely agree. Wide receiver contracts are quickly going to become the type that sinks teams. More replaceable than ever via the draft. To give up capital and shell out a mega deal would be totally asinine. I completely agree. And to just even back up his point, a lot of the top wide receivers in the NFL right now were recently drafted. A lot of teams are just like, instead of paying this guy big money, I'll let him walk or I'll trade him away, and then I'll just draft his replacement and get similar production. That seems to be the strategy that's working right now. I mean, even just going off of a list of the top 15 wide receivers who are under the age of 25 going into the 2023 season. You have Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Devonta Smith, Brandon Aiyuk, DK Metcalf, T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jalen Waddle, Michael Pittman, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London. You have our Jahan Dotson on this list as well, and I guess you could throw Jerry Jeudy in there, but you also have like George Pickens, you have Elijah Moore, you have Christian Watson whenever he, starts to be consistent for Jordan Love. I mean, it just seems like every year in the draft, you could just go ahead and draft a guy. The sweet spot seems to be the second round, maybe even the third round, but if you're that desperate, go in the first round and get a guy, and then paying him on that rookie deal is way cheaper than paying the receiver that you had balling out for you the past couple of years. Just let them walk, get similar, almost just as good, very comparable production by using a draft pick rather than paying that guy over $30 million a year. That just seems to be the wave right now. Also, shouts out to my boy Jamal at Let Maul Tell It, like I always reference in a lot of videos. I completely agree with his tweet. He said, quote, "For the record, I personally think that this video was more of a troll move from Brandon than anything of actual significance. I think he's naturally frustrated with the situation, but I also think he's just putting on a show in a sense here. But hey, we'll see." I completely agree. You never know what may go down, but this seems more like a look at me, I'm looking for attention. The 49ers don't want to sign me. Maybe this is like a chess move to get them to act quicker, maybe to lean a little bit more his way in the contract negotiations, again, that gap that we talked about earlier. Maybe they come up a little bit more and get closer to what he's asking for or something like that. Like, hey, I'm gonna act the fool out here. I'm gonna embarrass y'all if y'all keep playing with my money right now, something like that. So I could easily see this being just like a using the Commanders for leverage type of situation. And again, just to go back to, I mean, I almost feel silly even talking about it, because again, it seems like we talk about this. We can't go a month to 2 months without talking about Brandon Aiyuk to the Commanders. There's always something that stirs this conversation up again. Even before we drafted Jaden Daniels, there was this conversation going on. Then after we drafted him, it only heightened it, and it just seems to come into a rotation. Every few or so weeks, we're talking about Brandon Aiyuk to the Commanders. So I already feel silly for that, just period. But then you also have at My Sports Update tweeting, and he literally quote tweeted his own tweet of sharing the video that I showed y'all earlier of Brandon Aiyuk saying, "They said they don't want me back, I swear." He said the 49ers had multiple teams interested in trading for Brandon Aiyuk before the draft, including the Jaguars, but they never received an offer that blew them away. So nobody's really even close to trading for him right now. The 49ers seem like they're going to be stuck in their ways, staying 10 toes down and not move him. And then from there, it's Brandon Aiyuk's move basically. Right now, the 49ers are holding the cards. After the draft, they shifted their focus to negotiating an extension. The booming wide receiver market makes this challenging, but the 49ers' preference is for Aiyuk to be a part of their future. And that's the end of the tweet, but I would add to that, but at what cost? At what cost? So he may just end up walking in free agency. Maybe we could steal him as a free agent, but I definitely don't see us trading for him. Because how do y'all feel about this trade offer, first of all? Because I want y'all to remember, we're talking about paying him is already like a big no-no right now. With the way our cap space is set up, the way that we already have to pay Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, you're going to have to pay literally Brandon Aiyuk this offseason, Terry McLaurin the next offseason after that. So Brandon Aiyuk potentially 2025 offseason, Terry McLaurin 2026, Jahan Dotson 2027. It does not make much sense in my opinion there. But even outside of that, even if you say, okay, you're willing to do that, you're willing to pay 3 wide receivers huge money because you have Jaden Daniels on a rookie deal, he's playing at an elite level. But even after that, you still got to trade for him first. So would you even be willing to do this example trade that was thrown up there on Twitter recently? FanDuel put this up. And there's a picture of Jaden Daniels looking extra young next to Brandon Aiyuk over there. And I'm not going to lie, Brandon Aiyuk looks way less Mike Tomlin-ish on this picture. But either way, getting off topic, the Commanders would just get Brandon Aiyuk and that's it. apparently we would have to not only give up wide receiver Dyami Brown, who of course is not a big fan of, like, this fan base doesn't necessarily love him. Not a lot of people are really attached to him, but I feel like he has a lot of great value. Again, you can argue he's our best blocking wide receiver, and in a team that's going to run the ball the way that we do, not only with the running backs, but also potentially with Luke McCaffrey out of the backfield, like we're seeing so far in mandatory mini camps. They're trying to turn him into like a Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Curtis Samuel type of guy. That's going to be a big help. That Dyami Brown can basically cut off a DB, and instead of it being a 5-yard run, it turns into a 30-yard run. But also Jaden Daniels, same thing. Instead of like an 8-yard scramble, Dyami Brown is such a great blocker that he can help turn that 10-yard scramble, turn it into like a 40-yard scramble. So I feel like his value is very underrated amongst his fan base. Now, if he could contribute as a consistent deep threat, that would only be a bonus in my opinion. So you gotta trade him plus a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick. I don't know. Me personally, that's just way too much, especially again for a 1-year rental. It would be different. Okay, he was already signed to a long-term deal that isn't $30 million a year. Then maybe, just maybe, then I could kind of see, maybe, probably, sort of see the argument for trading for him. But not only do you have to give up all of that value via trade and a player in Dyami Brown who may eventually figure it out. Maybe this is his year. Maybe it's been more of a quarterback and offensive coordinator thing than him, even though he did drop a lot of passes. I'm not gonna lie. Even in the preseason, he was dropping a lot of passes. But even after all of that, you're still gonna have to pay him ridiculous money on top of it. I just don't see it. I mean, to me, I feel like that's the 49ers finessing us. And I feel like this could only even kind of make sense if you feel like you're a Brandon Aiyuk away from being a real Super Bowl contender. But we are not. At least we don't know if we are yet as of today at all. So this trade doesn't even make sense if you are just a Brandon Aiyuk away from being dominant. And we aren't even to that point yet. But say like one of those dominant teams like the Ravens just feel like they're just a Brandon Aiyuk away. I'm still not even sure about trading that much value for him and giving them all that money. But then we're just sitting here, the Washington Commanders, fresh off of a 4-win season, the most roster turnover and coaching staff and front office turnover out of the entire NFL. We don't even know who we are yet. I just don't see that potentially happening at all this season. Now, do we pursue him as a free agent after this year because he's held out to the point that they just let him walk? They couldn't even find a suitable trade partner. Then maybe that, but trading for him, definitely no. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. And of course, I'm dying to know how y'all feel about this Brandon Aiyuk situation. Do not forget the fact that we hired Dylan Thompson. Let me know how you feel about that in the comment section as well. Do you feel like I'm just overhyping every hire that we do, or does Dylan Thompson actually bring some real value to him for the Commanders? I'm telling y'all, this is another one that we stole. We've made a lot of great hires this offseason, but I feel like this is one of the more underrated ones. Let me know how you feel about that. But of course, let me know how you feel about this Brandon Aiyuk situation, especially if you're somebody that is willing to trade that much for him and pay him whatever money he's asking for. Make sure you break down the logic as to why and how it can make sense. And of course, if you disagree with it, if you don't want to do it, if you agree with me, let me know if you feel about how you feel about that and why as well. I'm gonna try my best to read and reply to as many comments as possible. Again, I've been super busy, but eventually one of these days coming up soon, I will just sit down and read and reply to as many comments as I can from several videos back, like literally going back over like a week or two, because I really want to make sure I see all of the comments. Y'all leave so many great comments. I just been super busy, so I haven't had the chance. So make sure y'all do that. Make sure you do not leave this video without leaving a like, and make sure you stay tuned and make sure you are fully aware you have that notification button clicked in, because I'm giving y'all daily content every day. So make sure y'all stay tuned for all of that. I really appreciate y'all, and I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.